Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dentistry Unmasked. My name is David Rice, and I'm here as always with.
Hello, everybody. Pam Maragliano-Muniz. I'm excited for this week because there's a lot of different things that we can talk about. And with us this week is Scott Manning. Scott, welcome.
Hey, thank you both so much. As I said that we just before we started here, Dentistry Unmasked is really the place that doctors want to come to know what's going on, what's next, what the greatest opportunities are. And I have to say, there's no better tag team than Dr. David and Dr. Pam on the dental airwaves. And so I'm really humbled to be here and really appreciate it.
We appreciate you being here too, and thanks. It turns out the more I hang out with Dr. Pam, the better life goes. So, we just keep working together. I'm going to ride her coattails for another decade or two.
I'm pretty sure the opposite is true.
Not a chance. Oh
Oh
my
my
gosh.
goodness. No, I don't think so. But we can argue about that later. So, Scott, tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background and some of the things that are exciting you in dentistry right now.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. Yeah, I got my start in the martial arts. I did it for 20 years when I was 15. Actually, I opened my first little karate school and built up a little mini chain in the Midwest. And that was kind of my first love of business, but more importantly, personal empowerment, human potential. And it motivated me to go to business school, eventually get my MBA, where I started basically doing the exact same thing I was doing in martial arts, except it wasn't kicks and punches, it was marketing and sales. And I was teaching entrepreneurs and business owners, really how to have lifestyle businesses. And over time, through mentors like Dan Kennedy and other people, I just developed a great following in dentistry. And so one thing led to another. I work with a lot of educators who wanted to fill seminar rooms and teach people how to do different procedures. And so I really started in dentistry through education. And in the early 2000s, I was with one of my great friends and early clients named Dr. Jim Wines in Plainfield, Indiana. And he was just had a wild success with smile makeovers back in the early 2000s. And he created this little postcard company back when, postcards were a thing. Now everybody wants online ads, but postcards work pretty darn good too. And so we licensed his system across the country, and we're helping people get smile makeovers. 2007, 2008 happened. We know what transpired at that time. So we shifted the marketing from smiles to mini implant supported dentures long before anybody was talking about all on X. Yeah, we were putting people's mouths back together, and we did it all across the country, mostly rural zip codes, giving patients, health for the future. And so one thing led to another. And one of my great friends, Dr. Raymond Choi in Irvine, California, he said, Scott, all these doctors go through these courses, but they come home and they're not sure how to implement. And so that's, what we ought to put together a little road show where you could teach the education, I'll teach how to implement. And so we did that. And it was during that time where I realized that, this is again, late 2000s now, where so many doctors, the rise of organized dentistry, which we respect and love, it has its place. It was really taking away the entrepreneurial spirit, the relationship aspect of why doctors become private practice owners in the first place. And I felt that being a, Main Street America entrepreneur my whole life. So I wrote this book called The Dental Practice Shift. And it was about shifting the business back from being a commodity to, okay, a destination place where people come and call their home for their life, and elevating the status back to what it used to be in the mom and pop days of a dentist's authority and positioning in the community. That book really changed everything for me. And I talked about the seven deadly sins of how doctors, except for the two of you, they basically have no clue how to run their own businesses. And so they have things that are blind spots. And so, after doing that, it's, one thing led to another. And my brother and I created this thing called Dental Success Today. And the whole point is that you got to love your everydays and have a business that serves you and it's a vehicle to take you to places you want to go. So, that's kind of the long and the short of it. Today, we very proudly are the champion of private practice, independent dentistry. We love, I say the doctor is my patient. I want our doctors to have amazing lifestyles. We know you're helping change patients' lives, okay, but we want to make sure that, you're having what you want to. And then you asked me, what am I most excited about or talking about right now today? Yeah, it's very simple. I think that it's always the greatest time in the world to be a dentist. That's the bottom line, because it's the greatest profession on earth. Okay, but right now, today, okay, more of our society is investing in and interested, okay, and longevity, optimal, preventative health for themselves. Okay? And so it's no longer, problem-based dentistry has been old news for a long time. Okay, but we call it possibility-based dentistry. But that's where it's at. But today it's mainstream in every corner of America. It is mainstream, and I can give you a very specific example. So I just want everybody listening, they're so smart to be here. If you're listening to these two, you must be the best there is. Okay? You have to realize that we can't wait for patients to find out about this. Like, we need to be educating and publicizing that dentistry is the pathway to optimal health and better life. And that's really the message I'm here to share.
I love possibility-based dentistry so much. Pam, like I saw your eyes light up, but the moment you said that, I was like, oh, that's so good.
Mm.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about that, because I think that people you like just sort of said it, and I feel like let's do a little bit of a deeper dive between problem-based dentistry versus possibility-based dentistry.
Well, look, thank you so much. I want to just start humbly saying, like, I like to say nothing I'm going to tell you is new, because I believe that the principles have not changed. It's all about human interaction. I like to think maybe I can say it in a way that inspires people to make it a little bit more tangible and practical. So, very simple. We understand, okay, accurate thinking says, Napoleon Hill, in dentistry, there's a stereotype that patients rather not come in, number one. Number two, that when they come in, they're afraid you're going to find something. And so immediately, okay, it's bad news if you go to the dentist and you have a problem. Why should that be? Okay, if we walk in and there's nothing to do, it's called a waste of time. So instead, we want patients to feel when you come in and we discover opportunity to help you, that's a good day. Right? So first, we're 180 degrees, the psychology, that the greater value we are to you means ultimately the more dentistry that we're able to provide. Now, patient facing, this is the dynamic. Most, and I'm talking about like 99% of your colleagues, okay? You two are one percenters and you're just probably too humble to admit it, but obviously you're the leaders of the industry, so here you are. 99% of dentists never go beyond patient sits down, open mouth, triage, okay? Pre-existing conditions, what's broken or cracked, okay? And how can I fix it? We're fixers, okay? I'm not a doctor, but fixers, that's what we are. So problem-based dentistry is looking for problem to solve. Now, that's not that exciting, okay? But here's what happens. When a patient thinks problem, let me ask you about your house. When you think house, you think problem. As soon as we think problem, we think cost, and we think least possible to get it back to a baseline. It's all negative. Right? So on the flip side of that, though, if we look at a patient, we say, now here's where you are, state of health, a few things we can do. But here's what's possible. Here's where we can take you. This is the goal, to never need dentistry again, but also to enhance your life to the greatest state it can possibly be. So possibilities say, I call it the crystal ball. Crystal ball, what's possible? Well, I don't know what's possible. It could be wider smile, okay, expanded arch, longer teeth. Okay? It could be smile transformation. It could be less pain, better sleep. It could be a whole lot of things based on your clinical philosophy, based on your model of practice. And so if we take a patient too, I go back to house. Imagine, everybody has one. You go and say, let's just dream for a minute. If you were to look at your house, say, anything that would be possible to you, what could you imagine? Well, let me tell you, first of all, that list is long. And second of all, they'd much rather put money into it, okay, than the holes in a roof, okay, and the cracks in the wall. So we're shifting all the energy, all the positive energy to something that's better and more exciting to them. Now, the good news is you got to do the problems first to get back to a baseline. It just don't stop there. And so when you shift that focus and you give a patient the opportunity to dream, now we can start talking about longevity, regenerative, optimal, obviously aesthetic, all the other things that are super sexy and exciting that doctors want to be doing more of, but there's almost like this resistance. Unless a smile falls in your lap, you're kind of afraid to bring it up and say, you got to wear it on your sleeve. So hopefully that just gets us started a little bit into the conversation. But that's the place that we want to play. Don't stop here. Take them here, crystal ball, imagine a dream, and then leverage your clinical philosophy to give patients, room to move, to sort of paint that vision of the future.
I like that a lot. And there's I'm not sure how familiar either of you are, but there was some research probably 25 years ago now ish, where the medical world looked at cardiac patients and even people who had heart attacks, like life-threatening things. And when they spoke to them from a problem-based, aka you don't fix this, you're going to die, nobody changed. And when they spoke to them from possibility of like, you can see your grandkids grow up, you can see all these wonderful things happen, people actually made nutritional changes that were sustainable. They made physical changes that were sustainable. So yeah, there's data out there in lots of different spaces to prove that this just isn't a conversation we're having, but really impactful.
Thanks for saying that. That's an awesome research. Well, it reminds me of the research in the water, the water molecules. And if you talk bad to it, they do certain things and they're erratic. And if you talk nice and, you make love to your water before you drink it, it makes love to you once it's inside. So it's very, very important. It's all energy. And I think we just really embracing that patient of thinking about that. And, it's funny, you bring up a story that reminds me my grandfather lived, for almost his entire life. And I'm in dentistry, by the way. I'm in dentistry. Okay? And he is, never going out to eat, never coming to family events, never all these things, basically edentulous. But we just think he's a hermit. We just think he's in a bad mood all the time. He's embarrassed. So once he realized what he was missing out on, okay, and he had the courage, to make a change, transformed the latter years of his life. It was incredible.
So how do we do this? I feel like what we're talking about is interesting, and I think that it could be extremely impactful. And for some, probably younger dentists, say, well, that's how I want to practice. So how do they get there?
Well, yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Pam. I look, the first thing everybody already knows, but we call it pictures proof in pain. I mean, number one, you can't take too many pictures. And if you're not using, everybody loves the whiz bang fancy new technology, but I'll tell you, when smile makeovers took a dip, it's a very simple thing. Go back to the lineage of dentistry, and if you see smile makers take a huge dip, it wasn't just the economy, it was the invention of the intraoral camera. And everybody went from big, broad, giant pictures with the full mouth retractors every time. That was all they did because it's all they had. And then you go into this tiny little wand waving the mouth, and all of a sudden now you're problem checking, you're going around the tiny little crevices and you're seeing small things. And all of a sudden we see a dip in cosmetic cases. So what we got to do is we could do all of the above. Now you got scans. Well, that's a beautiful scan, but once again, what you show patients is how they will make decisions and how they will invest. So we have to have alignment if we want to sell full mouth. And I don't care, it's like every tooth needs a veneer, but at the end of the day, we're talking about from full mouth. Okay, we have to show full mouth. We have to take pictures of full mouth. We have to diagnose full mouth. We have to present, talk about full mouth. And if we're going to get yeses on full mouth. So people love to say, well, I want to do bigger cases, but you got to go back here and reverse engineer to the origin of everything. And we even started before that. It's like pre-operatory. What's the conversation? Because by the time they sit down, their mind, I call it open the mind before you open the mouth. So number one is pictures. What's the photographic strategy? And then how are you engaging the patient with the photographs? This is the critical piece. So you can train your hygienists all day long. They take the most beautiful pictures in the world, but you said, and what are we doing with them? That's the question. Photographs, great job. Now, what are we doing with them? And so that leads us to questions. So that's one. Proof is obvious, it's demonstration. Some people are doing trial smile. Some people, you put the splint in the mouth, it's going sideways. Whatever your point of demonstration is to show patients that this is real. And you can leverage x-rays and things like this. And then pain is not just like probing pain, soft dentition pain. We're talking about like sensitivity. We're talking about also emotional, visceral. How do we make it real? So pictures proof in pain, number one. Number two, we do this by incorporating a question. The question is the simplest question on earth. Everybody has heard the question, patient, is there anything you'd like to change about your smile or whatever? Patient says, no, I'm fine, right? So we change the question. We say, patient, this is after everything has happened in the operator. We say, okay, patient, now it's your turn. Okay, I'm curious, on a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate, okay, your satisfaction and your smile today? And, no patient is going to say 10, by the way, unless they already got a beautiful set of veneers. So they're usually, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to do what humans do, which is called sell themselves short. So they're going to say something that's, somewhat self-doubt, insecure, low self-esteem. And we're going to say, oh, heavens, I think you're being hard on yourself. I'd say it's probably better than a 6. But let me ask you a question. If it were a 10 in your eyes, what would that look like to you? Okay, so we let the patient play in this space from scale from 1 to 10. They rate. So now it's not us. And then we close the gap, facilitating. And so that's how you do it. It's very simple. So between those two things, you're going to land in a lot of stuff. And then the last one I would just say is we call it smile health or aesthetic health. If you don't want to say smile health, it's part of health. Maybe it's the most important part of health. So we love to pick it apart into pieces, but you got to put it back together into the full vision. And so getting the patient to understand, this is just another pillar of health. Gums, teeth, bites, smile. It's a completion. Okay, every patient, every time. Otherwise, it goes back to why dentistry has a stereotype. It's because you can take 10 different doctors and one patient, you get 10 different ideas, 10 different treatment plans. How could this be? Okay, so we have to somehow make it more objective, at least in your practice, whether you're one doctor or you got many doctors. The continuity of care is built on principles. We call those the pillars of health. So hopefully those are kind of 3 tangible things, that can be done to sort of broaden this thing out into more possibility-based thinking.
That's excellent. You mentioned open your mind before open your mouth, and then you also spoke to pain, and you started off not just like the clinical stuff, but the emotional pain. So again, as Pam said, like we've got all these great young dentists who come here and listen. What types of questions maybe do you recommend people ask before their patients open their mouth to sort of set their patient up and themselves for like the greatest success?
Wow, such a great point, Dr. David. Yeah, you bring up these young, ambitious doctors who are consuming your podcast, showing up every month, and that's because the two of you are innovators, you are difference makers, you are bringing about things that maybe only sections or tiny spots of the industry know of, and you are opening people's eyes to possibilities. You're doing this for the industry. So we're saying to do the exact same thing in your practice for your patients. You sort of assume, and that's a tough word to use, assume they know nothing and enlighten them on everything. So, and we educate versus, I don't mind saying selling. The two of you, we're good. We don't mind saying selling, but really we're influencing people, and you do that through education. So the questions, I would say that, let's start even on the phone. You could ask a question such as, okay, what would you consider a success during your first visit with us? Is there something you'd like to learn, okay, or know more about when you arrive? Another great question is, just so we're on the same page with your past experience, can you tell me the last time you visited to a dental practice, whether it was here or somewhere else? And what was important to you about that experience? What did you love and maybe something you didn't like so much? So like these are just questions that get people thinking differently than insurance, cavities, and cleanings. Okay. And then, in the practice, we love, if we're just talking new patients, and it's an interesting thing in our industry, right? New patients get all the attention, and yet they're outnumbered, maybe like what, 10 to 1. So we say, why do the new patients get all the attention? But we take a new patient, and I believe the greatest breakthrough in dentistry would happen if we followed what maybe some other aspects of healthcare do. And we call it every patient is a new patient every single time. And then the question becomes, how so? How do you take the philosophy of every patient is a new patient every single time? And then what would that look like? Well, it would look like conference exams more often than every 3 years. And at best, they're half-assed even then. Okay. It would look like, well, yes, we're going to scan, not when it's available, but at least once a year. And is it going to be the alternate to the perio visit or probing once a year or the same visit? At what point are we really deep diving? Because we base checkups on the past. In my life, we base everything on the future. Where are we going from here? Okay. So the next part that I want to bring up is the treatment coordinator engaging with that patient before they even go to the operatory. And we're basically saying to the patient, tell me, what do you think success looks like at the end of the visit today? We go back to victories, wins, and we use words like this. Tell us what you're expecting, okay, when you have a conference exam today. And I always go to what would you like to learn? Okay, what would you like to discover or decide? And we're letting this patient play. These are just, some different questions. Getting the patient to verbalize a victory or a win, okay, is, very important.
This is incredible. So this is taking me back to a practice I worked in. I was a hygienist in this practice before I came back as a prosthodontist. And this practice at the time was established before I was born. And some of the patients that were patients of the practice were patients longer than I was alive. And we started implementing oral health related quality of life questions. If you wanted to establish this back in the day, the World Health Organization would have this crazy questionnaire that has like 250 questions in it. It's crazy. But it was validated at Tufts that you can assess one's oral health related quality of life really simply by assessing their comfort, their function, their perception of their health, and aesthetics. And what I found so profound, and this is what I want you guys to hear, especially the younger dentists out there, this practice was a practice where patients were coming in every 3, 4, or 6 months since before I was born at the time. And when we started asking them, are you happy with how your smile looks? Or if we'd say, do you think your mouth is healthy? How many people would say no? And you're like, whoa, whoa, wait, you come in every 3, 4, 6, like you're doing what we're telling you, but you think you're unhealthy. And you're coming in every 3, 4, or 6 months and you're telling me that you don't like how your smile looks. And the reality is, we never asked. And it was sort of one of those things that, I know when I was kind of growing up in dentistry, it was almost taboo to ask patients, like, do you like your smile? But the reality is, people want to have a great smile. People want to be confident, but we're too maybe self-conscious or not sure what to say. So we don't even bring it up. We sort of gloss over it. But this is their value system. We're just assessing it. And so it blew me away, especially when patients were like, yeah, no, I'm not happy. And it really reminded me that we don't have to deliver problem-based dentistry anymore. We can provide value-based dentistry and on healthy patients. It's really, really quite profound. We just have to ask.
Yeah, Pam, do you remember the first time a patient came to you? You haven't seen them for a few months and they walked in and they had a procedure done somewhere else and you were like, why did you go somewhere to do that? Like we do that so well here. And it's to your point, because we're not always the best question askers and relationship builders with our patients, and they just don't know better.
That is shameful, especially when, you're right. Like it's done really well here. And,
Mm,
why are we just seeing patients for hygiene? Why are we just seeing, it's a boat we're missing. And we certainly, it's an opportunity for a new dentist. It's an opportunity for an established practice when there's already semblance of trust that's been established. And it's really about the patient and creating what their values are. I just think this has just been incredible.
yeah.
I want to thank you both for these are great insights, what you're sharing. So much history, research, real life examples. I would add, I loved your point of happy. You see, when nobody wants more dentistry. So we ask them questions about the dentistry, you're not going to get very far. You ask them questions about their life, boy, they're going to open right up. And the challenge we have, as you both know, is that when dental professionals hear that, they think of, the kids and the vacations, the birds and the bees, like, no, yeah, that stuff is good. Affinity is good, but we're talking about life application and your happiness with your smile. We have sensitivity. Tell me more about that. Okay, what foods are you eating when you feel it the most? It's like all these great things that make it very, visceral. I loved your comfort, aesthetics, perception, things like this. And I just wanted to add, three very small things. Your quality of life questions. Oh, that was brilliant. I'll give you credit, but I'm going to take that one. That was a good standard of care, right? We like to say standard of excellence. But anytime you would never say, patient, I'd love to share with you just standard of care. Here, we're looking at this picture. You see a lot of recession, okay, or your gums are super puffy. When we're getting ready to do this perio, well, I'm going to tell you these numbers. When you hear this, you're in great shape. When you hear this, yeah, not so good. Okay, and I'd love to tell you how that applies to your life and what the future looks like if we do nothing at all. So we always go to standard of excellence. And I wanted, you said, so what could somebody do today? If every team member in your practice had one sort of key question, one emotionally engaging question based on their position that they could ask every patient every time, like you would be amazed at how the patients would just melt in your hands. Okay. They don't want to be held back on. It is actually insulting for us to say, I can help you, but just a little bit. I don't want to tell you everything, just a little bit. And that's what we do with our actions. Instead of going all in, let's give every patient the benefit of the doubt. If they knew more, they'd do more. Okay. And so let's just go all in. And then we can help them, because really it boils down to one thing, as everybody wants to make the excuse of money. And that's never been more flexible. Has dentistry ever had more finance companies wanting our business than in the history of the world? There's more flexibility. The patient has more access to financial tools. Now, there are people where maybe it's out of reach for, and then we have to find some alternatives. But we don't want people making money-based decisions. We want health-based decisions. And then we want just leveraging many ways for people to be able to invest in their care. And the last thing I want to say is, and we must celebrate that. We must give patients permission to invest and to let them understand the greatest thing you can ever do in your life is invest in yourself. And what is the highest value of investment you can make is in your health. It's in the thing you will get one time in your life. And so we have to reprogram, their minds in this way, and so that they understand it isn't optional or elective, right? It's all you got. Okay. And the more you can invest in it, the better off you'll be.
It's a great point, and it's true. We only have one life to live, and why are we living it with our hands over our smile and afraid to share it and afraid to be yourself? And I always say I want my patients to eat and smile and talk and just live without a concern for their teeth, and I feel like that's sort of a goal for us in the practice to get people to be able to do that. Wow. So it's a team effort, though. I know we don't have that much time left here, but it's a team effort. And I feel like this is not something that you go at alone. This is something where you bring your team in, and this is a conversation that, probably will start in the hygiene room. I feel like if it's not valued by your team, and then you come in and start talking about something that hasn't been set up for you well, I think it can be an awkward conversation or one that doesn't end successfully.
Oh yeah, well, I appreciate that opening. I mean, you're certainly speaking from experience. You gave us examples. I mean, I think it starts with, why are we here? Like, what is our mission? What are we trying to accomplish with our patients on a daily basis? And whatever that mission is, we got to go all in on it. Okay, and you can't leave it up to what I call it being an order taker. You leave it up to the patients to tell you what they want, like you're an order taker. Problems, you're an order taker. We got to be leaders and guides to a better way of life, okay, to a bigger, brighter future. And there's not one patient, you try it and tell me, okay, for everyone listening here, there's not one patient. You said, patient, I would like to help you create for yourself a long-term plan for your overall health. Is that all right with you? There's not one person who say, no, I don't want that. Just a short-term plan for tomorrow. Every patient would love a long-term plan for their overall health. And if we are in the business of creating long-term plans for overall health for our patients in the greatest profession and industry there is, then we do that. It doesn't matter how they enter the practice. Okay, but we want every patient to have that plan. And then some are going to get it done right away. Couple visits, okay, all in, the whole mouth. Some people, they're going to do a little bit of time. But everybody's got to have that. I call it visions, not visits. So sure, in the hygiene room. But the other thing I want to touch on, because the two of you brought this up earlier. So in our world today, in every city, and I live in Nashville, and Nashville is, people love it because it's, it's a honky tonk place, and the famous for all the bachelorettes and the music stars. But at the end of the day, Nashville is not a big town. Okay, it's a mid-sized city in America. So I grew up in Indiana, not in Indianapolis, but like Indianapolis is not thought of. You wouldn't think, but it's way bigger than, let's say, Nashville. Okay, so you can take any market, but it works better in the rural cities even more. Yeah, but here's the thing: the fastest growing trend in the United States today is full body scans, memberships for people to go in and get scanned. That's it. There's nothing but a receptionist and a machine. Okay. And you're paying a fee, hoping there's nothing to do, hoping there's wrong. Okay. You meet nobody. It's a person and a machine. And it gets sent up to mostly AI, but then to, some doctors that read it. And these people are paying between 2,500 to 25,000. Now, obviously, those have more facilitated health experiences. So, like, these are like all over the place. In 90 days in Nashville, we probably had 6 companies. There was none before that. You had to go to some big cities. Now they're everywhere. So people are investing in prevention. People are investing for knowledge and education. Now, let me tell you the next fastest growing trend. It's called sauna and salt. Okay. If you go to any city, you have sauna memberships everywhere. Okay. You have IV clinics everywhere, everywhere. You have longevity based health enhancement, proactive, not reactive memberships. So, like, this is not new to anybody. If you think about the growing trend, I won't go political in any way, not that anybody here would mind, but this healthy movement, the fastest growing sector of healthcare is supplementation. Okay, it is not, let's say, waiting to be sick. It's the fastest movement. And so why are we not, okay, as all dentists would say, we have more contact with our patient than any other professional in their life. So we have to take a leadership role. And our hygienists listening to this, any dental professional listening to this, you are at a moment in our society where we are on the front lines of helping people be more proactive, preventative, possibility-based for themselves. So we want to empower these people to make greater decisions for their life through their mouth, which we understand is the origin of all things related to the rest of their body. So we just have to make this as mainstream as it already is, and then take a leadership role in it and put opportunity in front of people.
I couldn't agree more. In the moment our patients not just believe, but they know that we're walking with them to help bring them where they want to go. This is a pretty, I dare to say, like, easy game. It's an easy game because that we're just helping people get what they want and what they need, and we're on their team, as opposed to pushing back on them, which is what most people see with dentistry and medicine and all the things that are happening in life. Pam, I have no idea how the heck 30 minutes sprints by, but we need to do this again sometime.
Oh my gosh, I know, because Scott, there's so many
There's
topics
so
that
much
you could
more.
cover like a deep dive in. So this was just kind of just the tip of the iceberg. So where can we find you, follow you, learn from you, find your books, all the things?
Well, you listen, you two, you make me sound good. Okay. So I appreciate all the compliments, but we're just of the same energy. So if you're here listening to Dentistry Unmasked, it's the place to be. I just absolutely love the title too of it. I think it has so many meanings. But at the end of the day, Dr. Pam, first time we were talking to each other, I know we share the, law of attraction, and I'm sure Dr. David too, because you guys are best friends, but in the manifestation and visualization. So here's what I want to just finish with this. We all understand what you focus on, okay, you get more of. Like attracts like. We don't have to be the commoditized, the insurance, the lowest common denominator. No, that is not a patient thing. That is an us thing. Okay, the patients respond to how we are. Okay, and we just blame the patient for thinking that that's how we're supposed to be. So we need to elevate ourselves, okay, and that begins first with your mindset and your expectations. And then we can reverse engineer the experience, the questions, the technology, the diagnosis, and all the other things. And clean out the clutter. Get the head trash, okay, get the obstacles, get all the things that water down what you do out of the way, okay, and start speaking in terms of ideals and possibilities and visions. So, I think the easiest place to go, dentalsuccesstoday.com, just the website, dentalsuccesstoday.com. And, I would love to send some books. I believe readers are leaders. We do that as a gift. If you are here listening to Dr. David and Dr. Pam, we'll up the ante for you. Okay. So we'll give you some great things. I think probably my favorite book is The Four Freedoms of Dentistry, because that's just what we stand for, is freedom and liberation, independence. But also we have, the original book, and then the private practice, profit book. So just, there's no strings attached. It's all complimentary. I believe in serving first. And I'm not for everybody. It's just like you can't handle every patient in your town. So, you better magnetically attract the ones that match the most. And so that's what we do. We'll serve everyone. And then the people that make sense, we're happy to facilitate. Champions know that they're going to be as great as the coaching that they get. And so I'm going to help you see your potential and break through any self-limiting beliefs, which is always you're succeeding at the level in life that you're playing at right now. And so you think that's where you can go, but you can go so much beyond that. I'm happy to help. So Dental Success Today. And I want to just say this philosophical thing about that, that Maya Angelou said, you only live once, but if you do it right, once is enough. And you do it one day at a time. I believe in creating the future. People stay stuck in the past, mostly in the baggage and head trash. But here's the thing. Anybody can look forward to a vacation, to a life event, to all these things. I believe that you're at the sweet spot of dentistry when you can look forward to and love your everydays, in the practice, out of the practice. And that's really my mission here, is to make you love it so much you never want to leave it. And that's what keeps private practice and entrepreneurship in dentistry, alive and thriving.
I'm
Amen.
excited. I'm seriously, I'm excited. I love this so much. This has been an incredible episode. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks to all of you who are listening or watching or however you're taking this in. We appreciate you. Love your thoughts, love your ideas on where to go next. And if you don't like it, just sip it. We don't need to hear that stuff. But Pam, it's great to see you too.
You too. And everybody, thank you so much, Scott. So much. You gave us so much today. So thank you. And everybody, we will see you all next week. See you then.
Thank you, everyone, for watching or listening to the show this week. And thanks to our guests and sponsors on this episode.
Please check out our social media at Dr. Pamela_Maragliano and at Dental Economics Official.
Or you can check me out at Ignite DDS or at Dr. David Rice.
And go to dentaleconomics.com to receive dental economics. You can choose to receive DE in print or digitally, and you can also get the details of our Principles of Practice Management conference on our website.
If you have topics or guests or anything you'd like to talk about on the show, send us an email to dentistryunmaskpodcast@gmail.com, and we will do our very best to make it happen. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.